faces in the middle. Happy to see them. Happy to see them. It's going to be fairly brief. It's not going to be a whole lot of including one person's name. That being said, I should introduce all of them. All of you.
It's hard to think about the tone for today. Obviously, we've all lost a friend. I think somebody that we all had adventures and great times with. Blaine, probably wanted more of a wake than a funeral, if that makes sense. Celebration of who he was and what he meant to all of us. So I thought I'd tell some stories about our friend. So I met Blaine 40 years ago. It was a spooky October day in Michigan, and we were both invited to the role play event, as you might expect. I was a dumb kid in high school, and Blaine was a few years older than me, so he'd already gone off to college in the big city of Chicago. I can remember still standing outside after we role played and talking to him and the group. It was a warm night for October, the wind was blowing. It just made it feel much more epic. I don't know what he saw in me at the time, but he invited me to play at his table. We became fast friends in a very short time. In a lot of ways, Blaine was my lifeline out of that little town. He was like the first real interesting adult I'd ever met. I think it was because he had this spark, this passion for adventure. He had the energy, he would pull people together, he was a natural leader. And I realize now he was probably the greatest bard I've ever met. He could tell stories like nobody I ever knew. I think he had at least a +4 charisma about that. But it was his magnetism and his passion for gaining adventure that drew me to him. I think a lot of others were in this room as well. Blaine and I spoke at length over the last few years, and especially during my last visits, about all the people he had met throughout his life. He had a very gentle and accepting personality. He would game with anyone. And invite so many people to his table. He pulled all of us misfit toys together. And people came to him who were hurting, who were lost, who were looking for a place to fit in and belong, or just looking for something fun to do. And Blaine was always welcome. He had a drive for adventure that led us to many fun places, both real and imaginary. I personally went caving with him, bungee jumping, the witches' covens. We got kicked out of the pool late one night as we were sparring, and somebody called it out because they thought we were fighting. We went to Renaissance fairs in costume. We went to one with bare feet because we thought that would be more period. And by lunchtime, we were limping around because, of course, it's a rock town. But we would go anywhere just looking for adventure, and we would play any game we could get our hands on. When I was in college, in the pre-cell phone era, I would just jump in the car on Friday night and drive from Kalamazoo to Chicago. And one of my favorite memories is I would walk into the mobile station where Blaine worked, and come through the door, he would make this expression of surprise. And if you know Blaine, you've seen that expression. It was so very memorable. And I knew he would always be up for role playing, walking around the city, whatever. And we spent many nights just walking on the lakeshore, talking about the meaning of life until the sun came up. It was during this time that Blaine ran his great Arthurian-based campaign called Myth. I had no idea how many players were involved in that great adventure. I was in at least 3 different groups on different quests that were somehow all interrelated. And there were moments where I would come down to Chicago, we would start role-playing on Friday, and I would leave as late as I possibly could on Sunday. Because there were moments during that role-play that I remember like they were yesterday. I'm sure many of you have moments like that, playing and playing, sticking in your mind. Blaine and I would talk about these memories, and I would joke that some of the best things that had ever happened in my life hadn't really happened. But I realized I was wrong. Just because we were at a gaming table, rolling dice, didn't actually make those moments any less real. There was real human connection there. Blaine had many strengths, but his vivid imagination and creativity were unmatched. His campaigns and adventures were fun, they were exciting, but they also created real emotional and moral climates. And this was because one of Blaine's other great strengths was his insight into other people. He had true sight, an uncanny ability to see what people and their characters really desired, not the superficial interest they may have expressed, but what they really were questing for. He would bring these out in our role play, and it was at moments like this that we would learn things about ourselves and about each other. He would test our ingenuity, and we would make decisions about a game and about a character that we loved, and we'd roll the dice and see what happened. Often we'd surprise ourselves and surprise Blaine in those moments, and he would laugh and make that same kind of memorable, surprised expression that he had. I'll never forget these moments, and I love that he could bring us to these story points together and be just as surprised at the resolution as we were. Blaine once told me that part of what he loved about role playing was that the final story was written by everybody together as a group, and that often the very best times were not something he had foreseen or even planned for, but were the result of that group of friends being together. Blaine was kind and generous. He was the kind of friend who would test you and challenge you. He would bring out the best in you, but he'd also forgive you and lift you up. He was the kind of friend who would be your armor, your shield, and your sword as you face the world back in the world. He was a friend who always had your back, the kind of friend who propped you up and made you feel like you're good. Marcus Aurelius once said that the measure of a life is how many people you were kind to. By that measure, I think Blaine had a great life. He would adventure with you into dark places, and unfortunately, many of those adventures are left unfinished. And I suppose that's what life is, right? A bunch of adventures that sometimes other people have to carry on to the end. Our friend Blaine goes on this journey without us, and we're left here to pick up our kit and carry on. As most of you know, Blaine had several health issues that he carried with him for most of his life, almost like his version of the One Ring. It was a burden on him that he never got to put down. But I think he found relief with his band of misfit toys, all of us. But I think especially he's got me. My last conversations with him were about Kevin and what they meant to him. And I think it really eased his journey, and I found partners like all of us, especially partners like that. I'm just glad that I didn't turn out to be the boring character in this story. The world would be a lot darker and a lot less fun without him, but Blaine would want us to adventure on and keep rolling those dice. He knew that the thing that made role play and life so precious is that those moments couldn't be captured. They're fleeting, just a moment shared in the company of others. A moment that can only be retold around a fire or a meal with fellow travelers. Blaine created thousands of these moments for all of us. And so now we're here to say farewell. Farewell to my game master, my climbing world partner, my fellow dungeon explorer, and my best friend. I'm glad I was with him at the end of everything. I hope his journey to the great haven brings him peace and rest. And I hope that he has a game set up to play when we all join him someday. I'll never meet another soul like this.
Widely attributed to Ernest Hemingway that a man dies twice in his life. Once when he's put to rest, and once when the last person speaks his name aloud. To that end, I'd like to open the floor to anyone who would like to come up and share a story or a memory about life. Michelle, go ahead and start. In about 2010, after I had known Blaine for a while, I went to a gaming conference in Mississippi, and a new vendor at the time, his hot new item for the gaming groups. Please bear in mind this is before Critical Role and the modern revival of the hobby, where it's very popular and you can find gaming supplies in your Barnes & Noble, much less specialty shop. This gentleman was selling dice that were made from a molding system that guaranteed perfect balance so that they would roll true actual odds without any weighted balance shifting. The catch was, because these dice were so new and in such a new process, they could not be made in contrasting colors. So they were just a chunk of plastic shaped to the die with the numbers carved out by laser. I brought them to Blaine. We were getting ready to game, and I said, I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to read these clearly or not have someone think I'm cheating. And he said, oh, well, hold on, this is an old problem, and I just happen to have the solution. And he grabbed, you got me ahead of there, he dug into his dice bag and pulled out a nub about that big of a white crayon. He said in the early days of the hobby, when you could just start to commercially get dice anywhere, none of the processes were set up to where they had an alternating color to fill in the die face. So gamers at the time would commonly use white, yellow, or other bright colored crayons and fill in the impressed numbers on the die to make them legible. He recounted at the point, this is when I learned something I had not known about Blaine, but I think Kevin probably knew by then, but he had sat at a table with Gygax. And at one point, he and Gygax and a few others were literally all sitting there, passing around crayons, filling in the numbers on their dice. And that's how I learned, and I have now, subsequently myself, being a little bit of an older gamer to some of the younger people I play with. One of them came to the table about a year ago and said, I got these great new dice, but I don't know what to do. I can't read them clearly. And I said, well, let's go get a crayon if we can find one. And we filled in his dice, and I told him the story of Blaine teaching me, and how it had gone all the way back to the storied godfather of the hobby. But I think that's enough of me speaking. Maybe you'd like to come up next? Cody and Tony.
Hey there, y'all. My name is Michael Goodman. I've only known Blaine for about 6 to 8 years. I met him from just some fluke, going to some random gaming salon to play local games. And that came from but after work, he invited me to come to the place, and, you know, and he became my best friend. And then Blaine really loved playing with my life. I dropped out of college because I didn't have to try in high school to do well, and so I did not live myself in college well. And I was living with my parents, struggling to find a job. Blaine, and he kind of really
was a low point, and there was a lot of me that was already there in me when I met him, but I didn't even know it yet. And it was only through him, through the lens, talking with him, learning from him, that I really cemented for myself who I was in the world. Not with him, but every day a friend of mine just happened to recommend me for a table she was joining. And thought I'd be a good fit, and I'm so glad. So super. I would have.
I apologize. I actually wrote some notes. That's what you're saying, because otherwise I'm going Drew it. As a freshman in college, Blaine was rallying a game of charades. In perspective, the dorm floor that year was about 30 football players, mostly freshmen, and about 5 or 6 non-football players, which Blaine was one of. And he had this gift to get all these jocks excited because he'd get us to compete. So he had us playing this game of charades. I think he was miming it, and I called out the word Drew, which of course sparked him to go, wait, how do you know that word? And I had played D&D in high school, and that started our friendship. Again, I was a freshman, I think Blaine was probably in year 3. I don't know. Somewhere in that journey. There's nobody in my life that I have more fun with. Gaming, but also many late nights eating biscuits and gravy at Denny's. Figuring out right and wrong and good and evil. He challenged this lawful good Lutheran boy to look at the world differently. I had that experience. My in-laws still don't understand when I try to explain that him becoming a witch helped me become a Catholic. He was the best DM that I think most people played with. But when I visited this fall, I spent time, saw so many people come visit him. And even today I'm hearing that Ryan talked about it and Paul talked about it. He was a DM, and I realized this fall, not just in gaming, but in life. He lifted us up. He helped us see the best part of ourselves. And then built on it. And he did that for so many people. He also helped, at least me, and I think I was talking about that before this. He helped me see life as an adventure. Not just take adventures, which were fun, but see life as that, and I could be the protagonist. And those are gifts. As I think Ryan said, I'll never know anybody like that again. He helped me be a better person. He was my best friend in many ways. He was my best man in my wedding. We joked often he was my spot or my Merlin. His last words to me were, I got better than this show. He is better. I'm a 14 with that same kid.
So the first time I ever, I can either see this without my eyes or I can see no with my eyes. So sorry. The first time I ever saw Blaine was I met him in community. And he became a friend. tried so much. I like to write poems. And this one. I got a poem. What's the word about? Not fast, but it's still like. I was walking over the today for us to say goodbye alone. When I felt the sharp pain, I say, well, barefoot and hard, no playing. Looking down the dice I saw, next 20 of all pitfalls. I guess you're telling me, no way, that you may be saying goodbye. No. In every game you play, in every tall town you sing, I will be beside you, whispering strategies. So look out for D20s randomly falling through. You'll step and remember, and the map. You two go, but I won't. Okay.
Those words at this point to honor the memories and lessons that Blaine will teach and his wishes. There are refreshments and games in the room for everybody to join in. So at this point in time, I'd like to ask everybody to mingle, talk with each other, share memories, and maybe gather around the table and play a game.
People